Have you ever walked away from an argument, replaying every word in your head, wishing you had said more, only to realize later that silence would have said it best? Most people think power lives in words, but the wise know it hides in restraint. Because silence, when chosen with clarity, can dismantle chaos without lifting a voice. Stay, let's explore why. As we step into the first chapter, imagine standing in the middle of an argument that feels like a battlefield made of words. Each sentence is an arrow, each pause a threat. You feel your pulse quicken, the heat rise behind your ribs, and before you know it, you've already drawn your sword. But here's the question. Who are you fighting really? The other person, or your own need to win? Most people mistake noise for power. They think control comes from being louder, sharper, faster with their words. But the Stoics understood that the one who controls himself in the face of provocation already holds the victory. The man who stays silent doesn't do it because he has nothing to say. He does it because he sees more than what's being said. Now, imagine this. You're in a conversation that turns sour. Someone questions your worth, mocks your choice, or throws a line meant to wound your pride. Your instinct is to defend, to prove them wrong, to reclaim the air they've stolen from you. But in that instant, you've already surrendered your peace, because when you let their tone dictate your response, you hand them the reins of your mind. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Choose not to be harmed, and you won't be." What he meant is simple yet brutal. Most pain is self-inflicted. No insult can truly touch you unless you decide it matters. I remember once, years ago, a man I respected mocked my work in front of others. He smiled when he said it, but it wasn't a kind smile. It was meant to cut. The room went silent, waiting for my reaction. I could feel that old fire rise in my chest, the ego begging to fight back. But instead, I said nothing. I looked at him, nodded once, and continued what I was doing. Hours later, he came to me, embarrassed. My silence had done what no defense could have achieved. It showed his pettiness to everyone, without me uttering a single word. That day, I learned that silence isn't absence of strength. It's the purest form of it. Epictetus once said, "When someone provokes you, remember that it is your own opinion which provokes you. That's the essence of detachment. What others say is wind. Your reaction is the flame. If you guard the flame, the wind can't harm you. It only passes." Every argument is a test of whether you control your emotions or they control you. Most people enter arguments trying to prove they're right. The Stoic enters only to prove he can remain calm. Detaching emotion from ego doesn't mean you stop feeling. It means you stop worshipping every feeling as truth. Anger isn't clarity, it's distortion. The Stoic mind stands like a still lake. Insult, praise, chaos, all fall into it, but nothing stirs the depths. From that stillness, clarity arises. You begin to see that every attack says more about the attacker than about you. When someone mocks you, it's not your worth being revealed, it's their weakness leaking through their words. Let them speak. Let them exhaust themselves. Their noise only amplifies your calm. The ego is a clever liar. It tells you silence makes you small, that restraint makes you look weak. But Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, the best revenge is not to be like your enemy. If someone shouts, don't shout back. If they insult, don't mirror their tone. Let them burn alone in the fire they've lit. When you don't feed the flames, the fire consumes only itself. That's what it means to outsmart conflict, not by domination, but by refusal to descend. So, the next time you feel that pull, the quick rise of heat, the tightening of words in your throat, pause, breathe, let the moment stretch, watch the emotion without obeying it. In that breath, you'll feel something shift. The storm won't disappear, but it will no longer own you. You'll stand in the middle of it, untouched, clear-eyed, calm. And that calm will disarm more people than anger ever could. This is the first rule of winning without speaking. Separate your worth from their words. Protect your mind from your ego. And when you do, every argument becomes an empty stage. The louder they perform, the clearer your silence sounds. From here, we step into the next lesson, the quiet art of the pause, where time itself becomes your greatest weapon. Moving into the second chapter, imagine that moment right before you speak, the tension in the air, the pulse behind your ribs, the words forming on your tongue, sharp and ready to cut. It's that split second where silence feels unbearable. Most people rush to fill it, fearing that quiet means weakness. But the Stoics knew otherwise. They knew that between the impulse to react and the choice to respond lies the birthplace of mastery. The pause is not empty, it's loaded with strength. When someone attacks your ideas, questions your worth, or provokes you in public, your mind ignites. You feel the sting of injustice, the pull of pride, the heat rising in your chest. Every part of you wants to speak, to correct, to fight back. But here's the truth. The moment you rush to defend yourself, you've already lost control. Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." The pause is where you reclaim that control. It's the silent rebellion against the chaos trying to claim you. I once witnessed this in a meeting where a young man was challenged harshly by his superior. The superior interrupted him, mocked his ideas, even laughed. The room watched, waiting for a reaction. The young man looked up, breathed deeply, and said nothing. The silence stretched. Seconds passed. The superior, expecting anger, began to stumble on his own words, filling the quiet with nervous explanations. What the young man did in those few seconds was not passive, it was tactical. His pause flipped the power dynamic completely. The aggressor lost footing. The silent one gained presence. The Stoics would call that wisdom in motion. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best answer to anger is silence." But silence here doesn't mean avoidance. It's deliberate. It's the refusal to act without clarity. The pause lets you see the emotion for what it is, a visitor, not a ruler. Anger is a wave. The pause lets it crash before you decide whether it's worth swimming in. The person who pauses doesn't suppress emotion. They master it. The world may see stillness, but inside, it's a quiet war being won. I learned this lesson the hard way. Years ago, I used to think quick wit was power. If someone insulted me, I had to strike back faster. If someone challenged me, I had to prove them wrong immediately. It made me feel alive in the moment, but empty afterward. Each victory cost me peace. Then, one day, I read Seneca's words. Anger, if not restrained, is more hurtful to us than the injury that provokes it. That hit me. I realized my reactions were punishing me more than any insult ever could. From then on, I practiced the pause. At first, it was torture. Silence burned in my throat. But over time, the burn became power. There's something almost supernatural about what happens when you hold the pause. The energy in the room shifts. People expect you to react, to meet emotion with emotion. When you don't, they lose their script. They reveal themselves. Their anger becomes visible, their insecurity exposed. You become the mirror reflecting their chaos back at them. And in that mirror, they begin to see what you already knew. This was never about you. It was about their own lack of control. That's why the pause disarms not only them, but also yourself. It allows you to choose reason over reaction. Think of the pause like the drawing of a bow. The tension builds, but you don't release immediately. You aim, you breathe, you wait until your target is clear. Words are the same. Once released, they can't be recalled. The pause gives you aim. It turns speech into strategy. When you finally decide to speak, every word lands with intention. It's no longer a defense, it's direction. And most times, you'll find you no longer need to shoot at all. The silence has already done the work. Power belongs to the one least moved. The pause hides that power in plain sight. The world sees stillness, but it's not stillness of weakness. It's restraint under fire. It's what makes a warrior stop before striking, a thinker hesitate before deciding, a wise person breathe before answering. That's where clarity lives. The pause is not about hesitation, it's about precision. You stop long enough to make sure your response aligns with your principles, not your emotions. I once saw a woman handle humiliation with that same calm. In a crowded room, someone made a cruel joke about her. Everyone laughed. She didn't. She simply turned her head, looked at the person and said, "Are you done?" Her tone was steady, her face serene. The laughter died instantly. She didn't raise her voice, didn't argue, didn't explain. She paused, and in that pause, she made the entire room see the difference between dignity and noise. That's what a well-timed pause can do. It exposes the truth without you lifting a word. Marcus Aurelius advised himself daily, if you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. The pause is where that truth lives. It's where you decide whether something deserves your energy or your silence. When you master the pause, life stops feeling like a series of attacks. It becomes a series of choices. You stop reacting to life and start designing it. So the next time someone provokes you, don't rush to fill the silence. Let it stretch. Feel the discomfort. Watch what happens when you don't give them the reaction they expect. That moment of stillness is not weakness, it's supremacy. The one who pauses owns the outcome. The one who reacts becomes owned by it. And as you stand in that silence, remember, power is not in the noise you make. It's in the control you keep. From this stillness, we move to the next truth, the unspoken force that makes silence command more respect than speech itself. Presence. Advancing to the third chapter, imagine a moment where the air feels thick, not because of noise, but because of what's unsaid. You can sense tension in the room, words ready to collide, yet someone stands still amid the chaos. They don't need to speak to command the air around them. Their calm alone reshapes the atmosphere. That's the power of presence, the kind that speaks before words ever do. And this is where strength stops being loud and begins being known. Presence is not an act of performance. It's a reflection of mastery. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. What you think, you radiate. The restless radiate noise. The grounded radiate gravity. People feel it even when you don't speak." That's why the Stoic never chases attention. He earns it without trying. Presence, in the Stoic sense, is the echo of inner stillness. It's the quiet authority that comes from one who has learned to control himself rather than others. I once met a man like that. He never raised his voice, never interrupted, never sought to impress. Yet when he entered a room, conversations slowed. not because he demanded respect, but because he embodied it. I asked him once how he carried such composure. He smiled and said, "When you don't need to prove your worth, people feel it." It struck me deeply, because the more you try to appear strong, the weaker you look. Real strength doesn't announce itself. It simply exists. Seneca taught that a wise man's mind is like the universe, vast, still, and self-contained. When you cultivate that inner space, you no longer need validation to feel powerful. Your silence stops being emptiness. It becomes presence. Your stillness stops being passive. It becomes magnetic. The Stoic knows that every movement, every glance, every breath communicates his discipline. In a world obsessed with volume, composure becomes rebellion. Calm becomes influence. There was a story once told of a Roman senator during a heated debate. Everyone around him shouted, waving their hands, desperate to win the emperor's approval. He sat silently, listening, taking notes, his face unshaken. When asked why he didn't fight for his stance, he replied, "The loudest men have already lost the argument." When it was finally his turn to speak, his words were few, but each one carried the weight of truth. By the end, the room fell silent. That is what presence does. It doesn't fight for the spotlight. It makes the light move toward it. People mistake presence for confidence. It's not the same. Confidence is about belief in the self. Presence is about mastery of the self. It's not about what you think you can do. It's about how little you need to prove it. The Stoic trains for that kind of serenity through discipline, through self-control, through knowing that the only domain that truly belongs to him is his mind. When you master that, you stop being reactive. You stop echoing the world's noise and start shaping it. I remember once standing before a group of people who doubted my capability. I could feel the skepticism, the subtle glances, the unspoken questions. My instinct was to explain, to justify myself, but then I remembered the Stoic lesson: silence and action speak louder than persuasion. I said what needed to be said, and nothing more. Over time, the doubt dissolved, not through argument, but through consistency. That's how presence is built, brick by brick, moment by moment, through integrity, patience, and restraint. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself every morning, waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. When you live this way, people feel it without you speaking a word. Because presence is not created in the moment you need it. It's cultivated in the moments when no one is watching. It's born from the quiet choices you make, when you could take the easy road but don't, when you could react but choose not to, when you could prove yourself but prefer peace. The modern world confuses dominance with dignity. It tells you to be louder, faster, more visible. But Stoicism teaches the opposite. Reduce the noise to increase the impact. The more you chase attention, the further it runs. The more you embody calm, the more it comes to you naturally. The man who yells for respect may get fear. The man who commands through composure earns loyalty. People trust those who remain steady when everything else shakes. Epictetus said, "If you wish to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." That's the paradox of presence. You must let go of how others perceive you to build an aura they can't ignore. The Stoic accepts misunderstanding because his worth isn't determined by external approval. His calm confuses the impulsive, his silence unsettles the arrogant, and his restraint frustrates the insecure. But in time, they all see what he knew from the beginning. That control of the self is the highest form of power. So ask yourself, how do you walk into a room? Do you chase attention, or does attention follow you? Do you command through noise, or through stillness. Presence doesn't ask to be seen, it demands to be felt. It's about carrying a quiet certainty that no insult, no chaos, no praise can add or subtract from your worth. The one who knows himself carries a gravity the world cannot counterfeit. And when you live like that, arguments lose their pull. You no longer fight to be heard, because silence speaks for you. You no longer fight to be respected, because your composure earns it before words ever could. This is the third rule of winning without speaking. Embody calm so deeply that your mere presence silences the room. And from that stillness, we move to the next lesson, the subtle art of turning conflict into clarity without ever lifting your voice. From here, we step into a subtler battlefield, the art of redirection. Imagine standing across from someone whose words are sharp, designed to pull you into their storm. Their tone rises, their face hardens, their goal is clear, to provoke you. Every word they throw is a hook, waiting for you to bite. And that's where most people lose, not because they're wrong, but because they let themselves be dragged into a fight that was never worth winning. The Stoics understood this perfectly. They knew that not every challenge deserves your sword. Some are meant to be met with the quiet mastery of restraint. The strongest response is often not resistance, but redirection. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." What he meant is that the wise do not waste their strength trying to fix what is outside their control. They guide it like a river that bends around the rock instead of breaking against it. Arguments are like storms. If you stand rigid, you'll be torn apart. But if you flow, you outlast them. Redirection isn't about surrender. It's about precision. It's about recognizing that energy wasted on proving someone wrong is energy stolen from your peace. I remember a time I watched two men argue in a cafe. One was loud, angry, and desperate to dominate. The other, calm, almost unbothered. Every insult thrown his way was met not with defense, but with something disarming. A smile, a gentle nod, or a simple, "I understand your point." You could feel the tension shift. The loud man grew more unsettled with each calm response. His rage had nowhere to land. Within minutes he looked foolish, shouting at a man who refused to fight. The Stoics called this the art of not contending. You don't meet chaos with chaos. You redirect it back to itself until it collapses. Seneca said, "The greatest remedy for anger is delay." But sometimes the greatest strategy is redirection, choosing not to engage where no truth can be found. The ego wants to win, the mind wants to understand, and wisdom wants peace. The next time someone challenges you, ask yourself, what am I really trying to win here? The argument or myself? When you fight for your ego, you lose both. When you fight for your composure, you win without raising a hand. Redirection doesn't always mean walking away. Sometimes it means guiding the energy somewhere higher, turning confrontation into conversation. When someone criticizes you, you can ask, "That's interesting. Why do you think that?" You haven't defended, you've invited reflection. You've taken control without aggression. Most people who attack don't expect to be met with calm curiosity. They expect resistance. But resistance feeds them. Redirection confuses them. It leaves them facing their own reflection. Epictetus taught that no man is free who is not master of himself. To redirect an argument, you must first master your impulses, because if you react to every jab, you become a puppet pulled by their strings. True freedom begins when you can hear provocation without losing equilibrium, when you can see manipulation and decide it's not worth your energy. Imagine the power of that. To stand firm while others flail, to guide the outcome without forcing it. That is Stoic warfare, the kind fought with poise, not noise. There's an old story from the Stoic schools about a student who was insulted in public. Instead of defending himself, he simply said, "You may think of me as you wish." The crowd laughed at the insulator, not at him, because his response revealed something deeper, unaffectedness. A mind so steady it could not be disturbed. That's what redirection looks like in practice. You take what was meant to harm and use it to reveal strength. You turn their aggression into a mirror that exposes their weakness. There was a moment once in my own life that tested this. I was accused of something I didn't do. The accusations spread fast, twisting through whispers and screens. My first instinct was to explain, to clear my name, to fight. But then I realized truth needs no defense, only consistency. I said nothing. I kept working, kept showing up, kept living the same way I always had. Weeks later, the same people who once doubted began to see. Silence had done what words could not. Redirection through action had revealed what anger would have buried. Sometimes the best response to lies is a life that makes them impossible to believe. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. That realization is the foundation of redirection. You don't control their tone, their opinion, or their misunderstanding. You control what you make of it. You can turn insult into insight, criticism into composure, tension into teaching. Every attack is a chance to refine your calm. Every provocation, an opportunity to practice mastery. Think of water hitting stone. It doesn't fight, it flows. But given time, that flow carves canyons. That's the quiet force of Stoic redirection, subtle, patient, unstoppable. You may not win every debate, but you'll win something more valuable, yourself. The one who stays grounded while others lose control becomes the anchor everyone looks to. Because deep down, every human being craves the presence of someone who refuses to drown in noise. Seneca once wrote that the wise man is like a fireproof soul. Insults, lies, and chaos fall upon him like sparks that die at contact. Redirection builds that armor. You stop feeding other people's fires, and in doing so, you stop burning yourself. There is immense freedom in realizing you don't have to attend every argument you're invited to. Some confrontations are traps, not tests. The Stoic sees this and smiles, letting the storm rage outside while remaining still inside. So the next time someone throws words meant to draw you in, don't step into their arena. Step above it. Guide the energy. Ask questions instead of defending. Stay calm instead of explaining. Let your silence and control expose what their noise tries to hide. When you master redirection, you turn every argument into a stage where your restraint speaks louder than their outrage. And that's when the shift happens, the moment they realize the battle they thought they were fighting was over before it began. Because power doesn't come from defeating others, it comes from refusing to be pulled from your center. And from that center, calm becomes contagious. It spreads, it reshapes the air, it teaches without speaking. That is how the Stoic wins, not through domination, but through direction. As we leave this chapter, remember, your energy is sacred. Don't waste it proving your worth to those who can't see it. Redirect it, reclaim it, refine it. From this strength, we now move toward the final mastery, the inner victory that outlasts every argument, the art of winning within. Entering the final chapter, Picture the quiet after an argument, the air still heavy, the echoes of words still hanging between you and the other person. The storm has passed, but something deeper remains, the question of what truly matters. Winning, being right, or staying whole? This is where most people stumble. They think the end of an argument is about who walked away victorious. But the Stoics knew the truth. No one wins if you lose yourself in the process. The greatest victory is not over others, it's over the chaos within. Now imagine this. You're walking away from a confrontation where you said nothing, but you can still feel your heart racing, your mind replaying every line you could have said. The ego whispers, "You should have spoken louder. You should have shown them who you are." But the wiser voice, the one buried beneath pride, knows you already did. You showed them by not becoming them. You didn't match their tone, their anger, their insecurity. You stayed centered while they lost balance. That is not weakness, that is mastery. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." Those words are not just advice, they are liberation. Because the moment you refuse to mirror someone's darkness, you prove that their chaos has no hold on you. There's a story of a philosopher who was once insulted in the marketplace. A man shouted curses at him, accused him of arrogance, and demanded he respond. The philosopher stood silent, unmoved, until finally the man screamed, "Don't you have anything to say?" The philosopher replied softly, "Do you expect me to argue with a shadow?" The crowd laughed, not at the insulter, but at the wisdom behind those words. He had turned the insult into dust, not by fighting it, but by revealing how little it mattered. That's the Stoics' way, not suppression, but transcendence. You rise above the noise until it can no longer reach you. Seneca once said, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it. And one of the greatest wastes is trying to prove your worth to those committed to misunderstanding you. You can spend your life defending yourself, explaining your motives, correcting every false story, and still, people will hear only what serves their own narrative. So stop performing for them. Instead, perform for your own growth. Let your silence do the work of your words. Let your actions become the proof you never owed." The Stoic doesn't chase validation. He builds it quietly through consistency, calm, and integrity. I learned this lesson the hard way. There was a time I believed I had to win every argument, make every misunderstanding clear, set every record straight. It drained me. Every small debate felt like a battle for identity, every disagreement like a threat to my dignity. But then I realized I was fighting ghosts. None of those people had power over me unless I handed it to them. The day I stopped explaining myself was the day I started breathing freely, because explanation is often a disguised plea for approval, and no Stoic ever begged for peace. They built it from within. You can't control what others think of you, but you can control what their opinion does to your mind. That's the boundary the Stoics drew, not against the world, but against their own reactions. Epictetus said, "What upsets people is not things themselves, but their judgments about things." You can't stop the world from misjudging you, but you can stop letting those judgments rewrite your truth. And when you do, something extraordinary happens. The world's noise fades. You no longer seek to win arguments because you've already won something greater, yourself. Think about it. The person who shouts to prove they're right has already lost control. The person who walks away quietly has already mastered control. That's the paradox of power. It doesn't roar, it radiates. When you are grounded in self-respect, no insult can touch you, no debate can shake you, because the moment you know your value, the world loses its leverage over your peace. Calm is not the absence of conflict, it's the refusal to let conflict shape you. There's a strength that comes from restraint, but an even deeper one from release. Letting go of the need to win is not surrender, it's wisdom. You realize that not every opinion requires your correction. Not every misunderstanding deserves your energy. The Stoics called this freedom, freedom from dependence on outcomes, approval, or validation. You can't lose what you no longer chase. You can't be defeated when you've stopped playing their game. So, when life tests you again, and it will, remember this: the victory worth keeping is the one within. The battle worth fighting is the one against your own ego, because ego wants noise. It wants to be seen, to be right, to dominate, but the soul, the disciplined mind, wants peace. It doesn't need to prove anything. It only needs to remain unshaken. The Stoic path is not about suppressing emotion or avoiding conflict. It's about using every conflict as a mirror to see how far you've come and how much power you've reclaimed. And that's the quiet revolution of Stoicism. You don't change the world by shouting louder. You change it by living quieter. You become the calm that others didn't expect, the stillness that unsettles chaos, the presence that doesn't need defense. Because those who master themselves cannot be defeated. Those who guard their peace cannot be provoked. In the end, arguments fade, pride dissolves, opinions shift. But the way you held yourself through it, that remains. That's the mark of a Stoic: to win without fighting, to speak without shouting, to rise without stepping on anyone. That's how you outsmart every argument, not by proving your superiority, but by protecting your serenity. So the next time someone tries to pull you into their storm, remember, you are the sky, not the storm. Let them rage beneath you while you remain vast, clear, and untouchable. Because true power doesn't react. It remains. And in that stillness, you've already won. When you walk away from an argument and choose silence over reaction, you're not avoiding the fight, you're mastering it. That stillness you hold, that calm you protect, is proof that your power no longer depends on noise. The Stoics understood that control isn't about dominating others, but about refusing to be moved by what doesn't deserve you. Each time you stay centered, you rise above the chaos that once pulled you in. Remember, silence is not emptiness. It's strength in its purest form. It's the space where wisdom lives, where emotion settles, and where clarity begins. When you practice restraint, you're not losing ground. You're building it under your feet. You're showing the world that peace is not passive. It's a choice made in the heat of conflict, again and again. If this message spoke to you, take a moment to subscribe and stay close. There's more to learn about mastering your mind and finding calm in a world that thrives on noise. Share your reflection below with a simple phrase: stay calm, keep walking the quiet path of strength. Because true power doesn't react, it remains. And the next step of your Stoic journey is waiting, one lesson deeper, one silence stronger.